The hidden cost of thinking too much or too little. Have you ever found yourself trapped inside your own mind, endlessly replaying scenarios, questioning every decision, but analyzing every possibility until you feel completely paralyzed? Or have you ever acted without thinking at all, rushing into things blindly, only to realize later that you made a mistake that could have been avoided? These two extremes, overthinking and underthinking, are like two sides of the same coin, both capable of leading us away from a life of clarity, happiness, and purpose. We live in a world that glorifies intelligence and quick decision-making, yet few of us stop to consider the hidden cost of thinking too much or too little. What if I told you that both can be equally destructive? That the mind, when not properly balanced, can become either your greatest weapon or your greatest prison. Let's start with overthinking, the endless loop of thoughts that makes even simple decisions feel like life or death situations. You've probably experienced it before. You lie awake at night, replaying a conversation, wondering if you said the wrong thing. You hesitate before making a choice, fearing that there is a better option you haven't considered. You analyze every possible consequence of your actions until you are too exhausted to act at all. Overthinking creates an illusion of control. It makes you feel like, if you just think hard enough, you can predict and prevent every possible failure. But the truth is, overthinking doesn't prevent mistakes. It prevents life. It traps you in a cycle of hesitation, making you a spectator rather than a participant in your own existence. Socrates once said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." But what happens when life is examined so much that it stops being lived at all? The danger of overthinking is that it disconnects you from reality. Instead of engaging with the world, you become stuck in your own mind, lost in hypotheticals, drowning in possibilities that may never even happen. And here's the worst part. Most of what we overthink never actually comes true. Studies show that the majority of our worries are imagined fears, ghosts of possibilities that never materialize. So why do we let them control us? Why do we allow our minds to become prisons of doubt, anxiety, and hesitation?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But before we condemn overthinking entirely, let's look at the other extreme, underthinking. Acting without reflection, rushing into decisions without considering consequences, living in a state of impulsive reaction rather than thoughtful intention. While overthinking traps you in hesitation, underthinking throws you into reckless action. But it's the person who speaks without thinking and regrets their words later. The person who jumps into commitments without considering the outcome. The person who drifts through life without ever questioning what they truly want, only to wake up years later wondering where their time went. Underthinking can be just as dangerous as overthinking. It leads to poor decisions, missed opportunities, and a life lived on autopilot. It is the reason why people stay in toxic relationships, pursue careers they hate, or repeatedly make the same mistakes. While overthinkers drown in possibilities, underthinkers are blind to them. They fail to pause, to reflect, to ask the important questions: is this the life I want? Am I making choices that align with my values? Am I moving towards something meaningful, or just moving? So here's the real question: how do we find the balance? How do we think just enough to make wise decisions without getting stuck in the paralysis of overanalysis? How do we act with intention without rushing blindly into regret? Because the truth is, both thinking too much and thinking too little come at a cost. One steals our ability to act, the other steals our ability to reflect. And somewhere in between lies the secret to a life well lived. The illusion of certainty and the fear of the unknown. We spend our lives chasing certainty. We convince ourselves that if we think hard enough, plan carefully enough, analyze deeply enough, we can eliminate uncertainty and protect ourselves from the unknown. Overthinkers believe that if they just consider every possible outcome, they can make the perfect decision. Underthinkers, on the other hand, believe that decisions don't need much thought at all. Things will just work out somehow. But here's the truth that neither extreme wants to accept: certainty is an illusion. No matter how much we think or how little we think, we will never have complete control over the future. And paradoxically, the more we try to control life, the more we suffer. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, dark forest. You know that on the other side of that forest, there is something incredible waiting for you, a life of fulfillment, success, meaning. But the path through the forest is unclear. You don't know what dangers might be hidden in the shadows, what obstacles might appear, or how long it will take to reach the other side. The overthinker stands at the edge, analyzing every possible danger, imagining every worst-case scenario, trying to map out the perfect route before taking a single step. And so they never move. They stay stuck where they are, waiting for a certainty that will never come. The underthinker, on the other hand, rushes blindly into the forest without considering the path, hitting unseen dangers, getting lost, making careless mistakes. And both of them suffer not because of the forest itself, but because of their approach to it. Life is that forest. And the truth is, you will never have all the answers before you step forward. You will never eliminate risk, never predict every challenge, never be able to guarantee a perfect outcome. The more you try to force certainty, the more you paralyze yourself with fear. And the less you think about the journey, the more reckless your decisions become. But what if the goal was never to eliminate uncertainty? What if the goal was to learn how to walk forward despite it? Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "The desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. To hold your breath is to lose your breath." In other words, the more you cling to certainty, the more uncertain you feel. The more you try to control life, the more out of control you become. It's a paradox, one that many people never escape. Overthinkers live in a world of endless hesitation, waiting for a moment of absolute clarity that never arrives. Underthinkers live in a world of impulsive decisions, avoiding reflection because it makes them uncomfortable. But what if the real solution is not to think too much or too little, but to think wisely? Wise thinking is different from overthinking. It is not obsessive analysis, but intentional reflection. It is not fear-based hesitation, but thoughtful action. It is asking the right questions without demanding absolute answers. Instead of trying to predict the entire journey, wise thinking focuses on the next step. You don't need to see the whole path to move forward, you just need to take a step in the right direction. And then another. And then another. The problem is, we are conditioned to believe that we must have everything figured out before we act. That we must be completely certain before making a decision. But think about the most important moments in your life, the relationships you've formed, the opportunities you've taken, the risks you've embraced. Were you ever truly certain? Or did you step forward despite the uncertainty, trusting that you would figure things out along the way? Because that is what life demands of us, not perfect knowledge, but the courage to move forward without it. So let me ask you, how much of your life have you spent waiting for certainty? How many opportunities have you missed because you were afraid of the unknown. How many mistakes could have been avoided if you had taken just a little more time to think? And what would happen if you let go of the need for perfect answers and instead focused on making the best decision you can with what you know right now? Because in the end, life does not reward those who hesitate forever or those who act without thought. It rewards those who balance reflection with action, who embrace uncertainty rather than run from it, who move forward despite not knowing exactly where the path will lead. The weight of regret and the power of choice regret is one of the heaviest burdens the human mind can carry. It lingers in the background of our thoughts, whispering about the choices we didn't make, the paths we didn't take, the moments we let slip away. And yet, regret is not born from the simple act of making mistakes. It comes from something deeper. But it comes from knowing, deep down, that we either thought too much and never acted, or thought too little and acted without wisdom. It arises when we recognize that we allowed fear, hesitation, or recklessness to dictate our lives instead of intentional, balanced decision-making. Overthinkers often experience regret in the form of missed opportunities. They look back and realize that their hesitation cost them experiences they will never get back. They remember the time they wanted to speak up but didn't, the risks they wanted to take but avoided, the people they wanted to love but pushed away because they were too busy analyzing every possible outcome. Their regret is not about what they did, it is about what they didn't do. It is the pain of wondering, what if? What if they had been brave enough to act? What if they had trusted themselves instead of waiting for perfect certainty? What if they had allowed themselves to live instead of getting trapped in their own minds? Underthinkers, on the other hand, experience regret in a different way. Their regrets are the consequences of impulsive actions, of choices made without reflection. They look back and see the damage caused by rushing into things without considering the long-term effects. They remember the words spoken in anger, the decisions made in haste, the reckless pursuits that led them away from what truly mattered. Their regret is not about what they didn't do, it is about what they did too quickly, without enough thought. It is the pain of realizing, too late, that a little more wisdom could have spared them heartbreak, failure, or unnecessary suffering. But here is the truth about regret. It is not just a burden, it is also a teacher. Regret is proof that we are aware, that we are capable of recognizing mistakes, that we have the ability to grow. And the only way to ensure that regret does not consume us is to learn from it. To ask ourselves, what can I do differently? How can I find the balance between thinking too much and thinking too little? How can I make choices that I will be proud of rather than haunted by? The answer lies in understanding the power of choice. Every moment of your life is shaped by the choices you make, big and small. And the greatest mistake you can make is to believe that you are powerless in the face of those choices. Because you are not. You have the ability to pause when needed and act when necessary. You have the ability to learn from your past without being trapped by it. You have the ability to train your mind to think clearly, deeply, but not obsessively, to reflect, but not hesitate, to act, but not blindly. This is the balance that so few people master, because it is far easier to live at the extremes, to either overthink everything or not think at all. But wisdom is found in the middle, in knowing when to trust your instincts and when to analyze the situation further, in recognizing when fear is holding you back and when caution is protecting you from harm, in understanding that life is not about eliminating all risk, but about taking the right risks, the ones that align with your values, your goals, your deeper sense of purpose. So let me ask you, what kind of regret would you rather live with? The regret of never having tried, or the regret of having acted too carelessly? Because either way, there will be moments in life where you look back and wonder if you could have done things differently. But the difference between a life of regret and a life of fulfillment is not in making perfect choices, it is in making intentional choices. Choices that come from a place of clarity, not fear. Choices that are guided by wisdom, not impulse. Choices that allow you to move forward without constantly looking back. Because in the end, the worst regret is not making mistakes. The worst regret is never having lived at all. The art of living with a clear mind clarity is the rarest and most valuable state of mind in a world that constantly pulls us toward extremes. We either drown in thought or act without thinking, and both lead us away from the kind of life we truly want to live. But what does it mean to have a clear mind? It is not about having no thoughts, nor is it about making decisions without hesitation. A clear mind is one that is sharp but not anxious, reflective but not paralyzed, decisive but not reckless. It is a mind that knows when to think and when to stop thinking. A mind that neither clings to the past nor fears the future, but remains fully engaged in the present. Most of us have never trained our minds to operate this way. We either let our thoughts run wild, consuming us with doubt and hesitation, or we ignore them completely, rushing into decisions without understanding their consequences. But the ability to think clearly is not something you are born with, it is something you cultivate. It begins with awareness, with recognizing when you are thinking too much or too little. It requires a conscious effort to step back from your own thoughts, to observe them without being controlled by them. When you catch yourself overthinking, ask, am I solving a real problem, or am I just feeding my anxiety? When you catch yourself acting impulsively, ask, have I truly considered the consequences of this decision? A clear mind also requires discipline. It is easy to get lost in endless analysis, to believe that if you just think a little longer, the perfect answer will appear. But perfect answers do not exist, and the more you chase them, the more you delay the life you are meant to live. At the same time, a clear mind does not rush. It does not make decisions just to escape uncertainty. It allows itself the space to reflect, but it does not allow reflection to become an excuse for inaction. It understands that the purpose of thinking is not to avoid all mistakes, but to make the best decision possible with the knowledge available. One of the greatest obstacles to clear thinking is emotional noise. Fear, doubt, anger, excitement, these emotions cloud judgment, making it difficult to see things as they truly are. The overthinker allows fear to magnify every possible failure. The underthinker allows excitement to blind them to potential risks. But a clear mind does not let emotions dictate action. Indeed, it acknowledges them, but it does not obey them. It asks, is this fear protecting me, or is it holding me back? Is this excitement leading me toward something meaningful, or is it distracting me from what truly matters? The art of living with a clear mind is also about presence. Overthinkers live in the future, constantly worrying about what might happen. Underthinkers live in the past, trapped in the consequences of decisions they made too quickly. But clarity exists only in the present. It is found in the ability to fully experience this moment, to engage with life as it unfolds, rather than trying to control what comes next or undo what has already happened. A clear mind does not dwell on what cannot be changed, nor does it obsess over what is uncertain. It focuses on now, on the decisions that are within its control, on the actions that can be taken at this moment. But perhaps the most important aspect of a clear mind is trust. Trust in oneself, trust in one's ability to navigate uncertainty, trust in the fact that no matter what happens, you will adapt, you will learn, you will grow. Overthinkers do not trust themselves enough to act. Underthinkers do not trust themselves enough to pause. But a clear mind understands that life is not about making the perfect choice, it is about making a choice and committing to it fully. It is about knowing that even if things do not go as planned, you will find a way forward. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you truly trusted yourself? If you stopped overthinking every decision, if you stopped acting without reflection, if you learned to think clearly and act decisively? What if you let go of the fear of making the wrong choice and instead focused on making intentional choices? Because the truth is, the quality of your life is determined not by how much you think or how little you think, but by how you think. And the moment you learn to master your mind, truly master it, is the moment you begin to live with true clarity, true purpose, and true freedom.